Hi there, my name is Carolyn Wood. I am in my last semester here of the MSW program here at Ohio State, and this is my presentation that outlines my evaluation project through the CAYCI program addressing student attendance. I would like to acknowledge and thank the staff at Memorial Middle School for their assistance in this evaluation project, as well as the staff and faculty that assisted through the CAYCI program to make this evaluation project successful. My field placement was through the Community and Youth Collaborative Institute, or the CAYCI program. This is a grant-funded partnership that is a collaborative effort from Ohio State, where they partner with various school districts in the Columbus area and utilize interns in the schools for various reasons. And for my placement, I was placed within Hilliard City Schools and was tasked with working with middle school students that had been identified for having concerns for attendance and at risk for truancy. For my project, the desired outcome was to determine if preventative interventions such as the CAYCI program helped to address concerns of attendance for students, and the efforts are aimed to be a more preventative measure to see if that was more impactful than a reactive measure once a student has already missed a significant amount of school. And the evaluation question that I created for this project was, did students that met with me through the CAYCI program, 1, have a more positive outlook on school, and 2, have an increase in overall school attendance after attending 5 individual sessions? And so for my specific role, I was placed at Memorial Middle School within Hilliard City Schools and was assigned a caseload of 7 students that had been flagged from the previous school year for having concerns for attendance and being at risk for truancy. The intervention consisted of meeting with each identified student individually and having 3 rapport building sessions at the start of the year. I then implemented the school refusal assessment scale as a pre-test, completed 5 individual sessions with each student that lasted around 25 to 30 minutes, and then had them complete a post-test of the same school refusal assessment scale at the end of our time together. And the hope was to see an overall decrease in score based off of the answers given from the school refusal assessment scale, which I will dive into a little later in this presentation. But the other hope was to ultimately see an increase in the students' attendance based off of the timeline of when they began participating in the program and meeting with me on a consistent basis. And the rationale behind this program was to foster a sense of accountability and provide positive reinforcement for showing up to school regularly. As previously stated, though, the aim for this intervention was to be a more preventative measure rather than a reactive measure, and this program aligns with a multi-tiered system of supports, or MTSS, that is currently being implemented in Memorial Middle School as well. And the purpose of MTSS is that it focuses on various aspects that relate to a child's attendance and providing a tiered continuum of supports and utilizing collaborative efforts to find solutions. So MTSS can also focus on various spheres of functioning at one time, such as those related to academic, social, emotional, behavioral, and physical health domains. Anyone that works in the school is also able to identify a student that is needing MTSS intervention, such as like a teacher, principal, or mental health specialist. And the faculty then meet on a weekly basis to go over the students on that list and collaborate and brainstorm on how they can best assist the child in question. So when it came to research and finding literature that supported interventions related to students' attendance, it was challenging finding one streamlined approach that was proven to work. And this is largely due to the fact that a child's absences from school could be based off of a myriad of different reasons, and it is hard to find a resolution that covers all the bases for this specific issue. And this is why interventions such as the CAYCI program or MTSS could be extremely beneficial for students because of the fact that these interventions are focusing on individual attention and addressing each student's concerns one at a time, rather than trying to provide one solution for all students and their attendance concerns. So here is the overall view of my logic model that I created that outlines the idea behind my chosen intervention for this evaluation project. The logic model shows that through the inputs of specific interventions, the overall desired outcome is for an increase in student attendance and student involvement. By offering more personal attention and recognition through individualized sessions in a private and safe environment, the hope would be for students to be more engaged and motivated to want to come to school. Not only the attention piece, but also providing therapeutic techniques and interventions, and providing skill building opportunities for the students to have to build on their ability to create coping skills and resilience to be able to come to school. The primary outcome that was measured was an overall improvement in attendance and a decreased average score in the school refusal assessment scale. And so the school refusal assessment scale was the measurement method I used for the pre-post test portion of this evaluation. Kearney and Silverman completed a study in 1993 that determined the scale's overall reliability when it came to implementation and being able to dictate and identify a student's rationale behind their absenteeism. In terms of data collection, I monitored each student's attendance on a weekly basis and kept track of their absences throughout the first and second quarter. Secondly, I kept track of each student's pre- and post-test responses of the school refusal assessment scale at the start and end of our time together to be able to compare their responses and overall scores. There were some barriers that were identified when it came to data collection. So for one, I had a caseload of 7 students at the start of the year, and only 5 of my students were able to complete both portions of the pre and post test, just due to having difficulty meeting with 2 other students because of their attendance. And secondly, I had anticipated being at this particular school for the entire school year, but had a last minute change in placement sites at the start of this semester. I actually moved over to the high school full time this semester. So this ultimately changed my data collection from 2 semesters to just 1. And this significantly limited my time with these students, and I think ultimately affected the overall results of the evaluation itself. So the evaluation design that I went with for this project was a 1-group pre-post test evaluation design. There was no separate control group with this design. We focused on measuring the changes within the same group of students before and after the intervention. Some possible threats to internal validity were identified for this specific project. So for example, selection bias is one identified threat, meaning that the students were already identified for having concerns for attendance from the previous school year and not randomly identified. Another threat is maturation, ultimately meaning that there could have been a lot of life factors that could have impacted a student at the time of their participation in the program, resulting in the reasoning behind their answers on the pre and post test and not necessarily based on my intervention. And so to try and address these concerns, one of the main things I was sure to analyze was the students' attendance prior to starting the program versus when they completed the post test. I broke the attendance up into 2 groups between quarter 1 and quarter 2 of the first semester, as we can see on this next slide. So as we can see here, the attendance of each student before and after the intervention varies. So I included all 7 students on my caseload's attendance just to show their overall progress or lack of progress throughout the semester. However, depending on the time of year and what that child may be experiencing, it could very well have affected their ability or desire to come to school. As I mentioned, I broke up the attendance by quarter. So the first quarter was August 21st through October 11th, and the second quarter was October 14th through December 20th. There are some students, such as student 6, for example, who had a significant amount of life stressors that was ultimately impacting their ability to attend school. But overall, a majority of the students that I worked with were able to maintain their attendance and keep it under 10 days of unexcused absences. 3 of the students here also had a better quarter 1 attendance than what was measured in their previous school year, which shows some improvement. With analyzing my data, I decided to utilize a t-test paired to sample for means, and due to the evaluation design that I chose, I felt this t-test was most appropriate to be able to determine the overall effect size of the data that was collected. The school refusal assessment scale has 24 total questions and is scored by providing a number between 1 to 6 to each question and then breaking those answers into 4 categories. And whichever category has the highest average score for the student indicates their main reasoning for not attending school. And so the 4 categories are avoidance of aversive situations, avoidance of social situations, seeking attention from significant others, and seeking tangible reinforcements outside of school. And the overall goal of this evaluation was to see if the interventions provided through individual sessions would provide a decrease in their score on the school refusal assessment scale, as well as provide indication for why a child might be missing school and provide school staff with assistance towards how to address these barriers. The graph shown here is broken up by the 4 categories that we just went through from the school refusal assessment scale, and this is the overall average of every student's response from their pre and post test. So notice that there was a decrease in score for avoidance of social situations and seeking attention from significant others, and then an increase in avoidance of aversive situations and seeking tangible reinforcement outside of school. This kind of ties into the observation of how different life events may be impacting students at certain times throughout the school year. So what may have been affecting them at the start of the school year may not have been such a strong stressor at the end of the second quarter. Also, it is a strong possibility that the interventions provided through the program assisted with certain aspects such as avoiding social situations, as topics such as anxiety and peer relationships were largely covered in individual sessions, along with other therapeutic interventions. And then when completing the t-test, I broke the data down even further by utilizing only one of the 4 categories from the school refusal assessment scale and the average responses from each student. So this just shows the overall effect size for the category outlining avoidance of social situations. And again, this is the average of every student that completed the pre and post test. So as we can see, the effect size is 0.09. This effect size is considered to be extremely small, but still statistically significant. This can be interpreted as the program having some effect on a student's progress, but is not or may not be strong enough to be the overall indicator or reason behind a student's progress. And it indicates that this could be due to other factors. So this aligns with research that I completed through the literature review that outlined that it's very hard to find an intervention that addresses attendance that works for every single student, given the nature of not knowing each student's barriers or life experiences that are preventing them from coming to school on a consistent basis. Overall, this evaluation project showed that the program could be a positive intervention for student attendance, but does not have enough evidence to show that it is extremely impactful in terms of intervention or would be the sole indicator that was the reason for a child's decrease in overall attendance or increase in attendance. Pairing this intervention with another evidence-based intervention such as MTSS and over a longer period of time could provide more noticeable results. There were a number of variables that played a role in this specific set of data that I've previously mentioned, such as the time limit I had with each student given my change of position. And another huge barrier was the student's attendance. So if a student missed school, I wasn't able to meet with them and complete a session, which prolonged our time together and interrupted any possible progress that was being made. This provided a large amount of struggle in terms of rapport, but also just with the student on my caseload being able to complete the program in its entirety with the pre and post test and completing that school refusal assessment scale to get the data that I needed. So in the future, I would like to have a larger group size and a larger intervention time frame. I think both of these would give me more data to work with and more time to evaluate how things are going throughout the evaluation to maybe implement different strategies to help towards student progress. Thank you so much for your time.